And what happened after those 19 years, 6 months,
I
and
worked
10
for
days?
28 years, I think, in aerospace. I guess my first job was with Babcock Radio Engineering. They were making target aircraft for the Pacific Missile Range. They usually radio controlled target aircraft, and so they could shoot those things down. And then from Babcock went to I think it's General Dynamics, Pomona, and we worked on the Stinger missile, the shoulder-fired. I think the Stinger was the shoulder-fired, and then we had a Gatling gun. What was that called? But anyway, it was a six-barrel type, I think, like the old Gatling guns on the war wagons. They'd crank that thing, and it had, I think, about six barrels on it. They were 20 millimeter, I think. But they'd really spew out a lot of rounds. And then from General Dynamics, I was at Systems Consultants. We were located right outside the main gate at the China Lakes Weapons Center up there. And we provided service for them. And then from there, I think it was went to Northrop on the B-2 stealth bomber. They had these headhunters out there trying to round up people that had experience, and it was called it. They called it advanced technology aircraft. About the only thing I'd tell you. So anyway, it was kind of one of those dark things that you didn't. it was fairly secret. So anyway, that's they finally. Well, actually, one of the guys had gone there before me from our unit, and so he turned my resume in, or application in, and he got a $300 bounty for for that. I didn't want.
You didn't split it with him, though.
Didn't
You
want a
didn't-
headhunter getting it. Just wanted someone that I knew. So anyway, I worked for them until then for I don't know how many years, but until the B-1 made its the B-2, I guess it was. B-1, I think, was a larger aircraft, and B-2 was the stealth design. There was a stealth fighter also. The design of it was such that when the radar wave hit it, it didn't bounce back to the sender. It reflected off somewhere another direction.
Deflected.
And that fighter looked a lot more, seemed like it had a lot more angles than our B-2 did.
So it basically couldn't get picked up by radar.
Well, as I said, it would be it was about might have get a return about like a bird, something like that,
Okay.
but not didn't get the full signal back, So,
So after it was all over,
Say again?
once you retired, where did you end up living?
when I retired completely,
Yes.
I guess we were living in I don't know. we wound up down I think we were living in Lake City, Florida. Well, that's where we were living when we got married. It was Lake City, which was 60 miles west of Jacksonville. And then we went to Hutchinson, Kansas. I think we were up there in about 1946. They moved us up there. That's when they were, we lived in 12 years, we lived in 9 different locations. And most all of them was in the same organization.
Right.
Everything was moved. And so we'd save up enough money between moves to buy drapes or curtains at the next house. So it was, you just couldn't get ahead.
So you had children,
Yeah.
and so they went to lots of different schools, I suspect.
Yeah, well, let's see, I got it in 59. Jerry was born in 48, I think, and Vicky in 52. And so anyway, they got good schools, and Jerry, he only graduated summa cum laude in a science program, and Vicky, his wife was magna cum laude. And she's a real sharp. Sharon is she's what was it? Facilities management, I think, for the what was this, UCLA or what? But anyway, she was facilities management.
High achiever.
She was when he went down to get checked out in the lab there on the equipment. She was his instructor. So anyway, yeah, she's a neat woman and sharp.
Do many young people of the newer generation ask you about Pearl Harbor?
Well, yeah, a lot of course, I guess when they had a little more money and they could go to school or something or other, they'd give you bad mouth about going into the service, and so my response was, well, I like to eat, because you couldn't get a job, unless you had some sort of influence somewhere along the line.
Yes. Interesting.
So to get into school, to be somewhere along the line there, unless if you were a white male, you were at the end of the line. That's when they had this, what do you call it, reverse discrimination. Remember, Baki, he had applied, I guess, for school, medical school. I don't know if it was medical school or what. And of course, he was refused. He wasn't accepted. He finally got it all the way to the Supreme Court and won. And my wife and I were at Washington, D.C. We were in the reception area there of the Supreme Court building, and there's a cartoon up there, showed a bus. The guy sitting in the back seat, and underneath it said, "You can move to the front of the bus now, Mr. Baki." He was persistent. He won.
He made history, I guess.
Yeah, and that's one of the problems that Jerry ran into also. He'd applied it everywhere over the country, and then he was sharp. He bragging a little bit. if he graduates soon, cum laude in a science program, well, that's not too bad.
No.
So has he followed in your footsteps?
Something?
Has he followed in your footsteps?
No, he was chief of pathology at Kaiser.
Oh, okay.
For
So he went
about
into
18
medicine.
years.
I see.
Yeah, I bought him a microscope when he was, one of these little rinky-dink microscopes. When I don't know, when he was young, and I guess that probably tweaked his curiosity, and so.
Inspired.
Later on, he says, someone asked him about his patients. He says, "Well, most of my patients don't talk back to me because he's looking at them through a microscope."
Right. That's cute.